The first thing people notice in a fine dining restaurant isn't the crystal chandeliers. It's silence. Not the peaceful kind. The expensive kind. The kind bought by people who never needed to raise their voices because everyone else did it for them. I had learned that during my third year serving tables at Marlowe House. By 26, I could recognize wealth by footsteps alone. Old money walked slowly. New money wanted to be seen. The truly dangerous ones barely made a sound. Friday evenings belonged to Manhattan's elite. Politicians. Tech founders. Professional athletes. Executives who discussed layoffs over 30-year-old Bordeaux. I carried plates worth more than my monthly rent while pretending not to hear conversations capable of moving stock markets before breakfast. Naomi. My manager's voice cut sharply through the dining room. Private room. Table 7. Every waiter glanced toward the secluded glass dining room overlooking Central Park. Nobody argued over table 7. Nobody volunteered either. Because everyone knew who occupied it. Gabriel Stone. The name never appeared in newspapers beside the word crime. Officially, he owned shipping companies, logistics firms, luxury hotels, and charitable foundations. Unofficially, people lowered their voices whenever they spoke his name. I adjusted my charcoal gray tailored uniform, smoothed invisible wrinkles from my apron, and balanced a silver tray against my palm. Professional. Calm. Invisible. Exactly how waitresses survived places like this. The private room stood unusually quiet. 6 men occupied the table. 5 spoke. 1 listened. Gabriel Stone sat at the head without touching the imported whiskey resting beside his hand. He looked younger than rumors suggested. 35, maybe. Broad shoulders filled a midnight blue suit that fit like armor. Dark hair combed neatly back. A carefully trimmed beard softened nothing about the sharp angles of his face. Fine black ink disappeared beneath his cuff each time he reached for his water glass. Not flashy tattoos. Deliberate ones. His eyes lifted before I spoke. Gray. Steady. The kind of eyes that evaluated exits before decorations. Good evening, I said with practiced warmth. Would anyone care for dessert this evening? Nobody answered immediately. One man laughed while scrolling through financial reports on a tablet. Another continued negotiating shipping routes somewhere in the Atlantic. Gabriel remained silent. Finally, he closed the leather folder before him. What do you recommend? Not because he needed dessert. Because he was watching how I answered. The pear tart. Why? Because it's the only dessert our pastry chef still tastes personally before service. A corner of his mouth almost moved. Almost. I'll trust your judgment. The others followed his order without reading the menu. Power worked that way. People copied confidence more often than logic. 20 minutes later I returned carrying handcrafted desserts arranged like artwork. Nobody looked at the food. Arguments had replaced business. If we delay another quarter, investors panic. We're already exposed. It's your acquisition that failed. Voices remained controlled. The tension did not. I quietly placed the final plate before Gabriel. He thanked me with a slight nod. Nothing unusual. Until I returned to clear the dishes. Beneath his untouched coffee cup rested folded cash. Not a credit slip. Cash. Crisp $100 bills. Several of them. Far too many. Enough to erase 6 months of rent. Enough to pay my remaining tuition. Enough to make almost anyone forget their pride for one evening. The junior server stared from across the room. Even my manager had stopped pretending not to watch. One whispered, "Take it." Another muttered, "That's more than we'll make all year." I looked back at the table. Gabriel wasn't watching his associates anymore. He was watching me. Waiting. Not with arrogance. With curiosity. As though this were some quiet experiment whose outcome genuinely interested him. I picked up the envelope. Walked back. Placed it gently beside his untouched coffee. "I'm sorry, Mr. Stone." The room fell still. "I can't accept this." One executive actually laughed. "You even know how much is inside?" "I don't need to." Gabriel spoke for the first time in several minutes. "Most people would. I believe they would." His fingers rested calmly against the envelope. "You've earned it." I met his eyes. "No, sir." His expression remained unreadable. "The service earned payment." I slid the envelope another inch toward him. "My dignity isn't included on tonight's menu." Nobody moved. Not the executives. Not security. Not even my manager. Crystal glasses seemed louder than breathing. Gabriel looked down at the envelope. Then back at me. For several endless seconds, the most powerful man in the room said absolutely nothing. Until someone outside the private dining room suddenly shouted, "Naomi! Don't touch that envelope." Every head turned. My manager had gone pale. Standing beside him were two detectives carrying badges. And they were walking straight toward our table. The detectives stopped 3 feet from our table. Neither reached for handcuffs. Neither looked at me. Their eyes stayed fixed on Gabriel Stone. "Mr. Stone," the older detective said evenly. "Mind answering a few questions?" Around us, conversations throughout Marlowe House evaporated. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Wine glasses hovered in the air. Nobody wanted to appear interested. Everyone was. Gabriel leaned back without the slightest hint of urgency. "I've already answered them twice this week. Humor us." One detective placed a sealed evidence envelope onto the white linen tablecloth. "We recovered another employee from East Harbor Logistics." Silence. I recognized the company name. One of Gabriel's shipping firms. The detective continued. "He's willing to testify." One of Gabriel's executives shifted uncomfortably. Another reached instinctively toward his phone. Gabriel raised one finger. The movement was almost invisible. Every phone disappeared beneath the table. No words. Just discipline. "I assume," Gabriel said calmly, "you have a warrant." "Not today." "Then I suggest you stop frightening restaurant staff." His voice never rose. It didn't need to. The detectives exchanged a glance. "We'll be seeing each other again." They left. Only after the front doors closed did anyone remember how to breathe. My manager rushed toward the private room, face flushed with panic. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Stone. They had no authorization to enter. Dessert is complimentary tonight." Gabriel ignored him. Instead, he looked at me. The envelope. I placed it gently into his waiting hand. "I believe it belongs to you." His thumb rested against the edge of the folded bills. "Why?" "You already asked that question." "I don't think I received an honest answer." I smiled politely. "No. It wasn't honest." His eyebrows lifted slightly. "The honest answer is..." I searched for the right words. My father spent his entire life believing every favor came with a receipt. The room blurred for just a second. Not from fear. Memory. I watched him accept help from people who never intended to help. I met Gabriel's eyes again. I promised myself I'd never confuse generosity with leverage. For the first time all evening. Something shifted behind those gray eyes. Not anger. Recognition. Before either of us could speak again, "Naomi." My manager's voice cracked. "Office. Now." The entire dining room watched me walk away. No one looked sympathetic. Only curious. Inside the cramped office, the restaurant suddenly felt much smaller. The manager slammed the door. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" I returned a tip. "You embarrassed our most important client." I treated him the same way I treat everyone. His laugh held no humor. "That's exactly the problem." He tossed my employee file onto the desk. "You know how many people would kill for this job?" "I do." "Then act like it." He lowered his voice. "You apologize before your shift ends." "No." His jaw tightened. "No. I won't apologize for saying no politely." The office fell quiet. He stared at me for several long seconds. Finally, he sighed. "I defended you." My stomach tightened. "What?" "When ownership called." His eyes dropped to the floor. "They wanted you fired immediately." Ownership. Not management. Someone above him. Someone who cared far too much about a rejected tip. I convinced them to wait. Why? Because. He hesitated. They didn't call until after someone from Gabriel Stone's office contacted them. The words landed harder than any accusation. I frowned. I thought he might have complained. So did I. He swallowed. But according to ownership. He specifically asked them not to discipline you. That made even less sense. Why would the most powerful customer in the city protect the waitress who had publicly rejected him? I finished my shift in a fog of unanswered questions. Near midnight, I stepped through the employee's entrance into the cool Manhattan air. The street looked almost empty. Almost. A black town car waited beneath the street lamp across the avenue. Its headlights remained off. The engine idled quietly. The rear passenger window lowered halfway. Gabriel Stone sat inside alone. Not surrounded by security. Not making a phone call. Just waiting. He didn't motion for me to come over. He didn't speak. Instead, he held up the envelope one last time. Then, before my eyes, he dropped every bill into a portable metal ashtray beside him. A lighter clicked. Orange flames swallowed the money. Without looking away from me, he burned every single dollar I had refused. Then he drove away. Leaving me alone beneath the streetlight, wondering why a man who could buy almost anything had just destroyed the one thing he had expected would matter. Sleep should have come easily after a 14-hour shift. Instead, I kept seeing burning money. Not because I wanted it. Because no one destroyed that much cash unless they were trying to prove something. Or punish themselves. By Monday morning, Marlowe House buzzed like a trading floor after bad earnings. Every employee had a version of the story. Some said Gabriel Stone admired me. Others insisted I had insulted the wrong billionaire and simply hadn't felt the consequences yet. Only one person looked genuinely unhappy. Claire. She had started at the restaurant 2 months before me. Perfect smile. Perfect hair. Perfect ability to remember exactly who deserved flattery. She cornered me beside the espresso station before lunch service. "You really think you're special now?" "I don't. You embarrassed all of us." "I embarrassed myself." She laughed quietly. "No. You embarrassed the people who sign our paychecks." Before I could answer, our maitre d' appeared carrying a sealed envelope. "Naomi. It's for you." Every head turned again. My stomach tightened. The envelope carried no company logo. Only my name. Inside sat a single ivory card. No greeting. No signature. Just one sentence. "Your recommendation was correct. The pear tart deserved to be trusted." Nothing else. No phone number. No invitation. No money. I folded the card and slipped it into my apron. Claire noticed. So. What does the king want now? I don't know. She smiled. I think you do. The rest of the afternoon unraveled faster than the lunch rush. A food critic unexpectedly arrived. Our executive chef disappeared after suffering what management called a medical emergency. Half the kitchen fell into controlled panic. Orders backed up. Guests complained. One investor threatened to leave without paying. Then Table 12 demanded immediate service. The hostess whispered the reservation name. Stone. Not Gabriel. His younger brother. Evan Stone. Unlike Gabriel, Evan entered loudly. Expensive watch. Designer sneakers. Confidence sharpened into arrogance. He looked barely 30. The first thing he noticed wasn't the dining room. It was me. So. He leaned back in his chair. You're the famous waitress. I'm your server today. I heard my brother likes difficult people. I wouldn't know. His smile widened. You'll know soon enough. Everything about him felt different from Gabriel. Gabriel made silence uncomfortable. Evan filled it with noise. He criticized every course. Sent back perfectly cooked steak. Complained the wine wasn't breathing correctly. Insisted our pianist was playing too slowly. Each complaint grew louder. More public. More deliberate. Finally, he snapped his fingers. Come here. I walked over. He removed a silver fountain pen from his jacket. Placed it carefully on the table. Pick it up. I'm sorry. You heard me. I dropped it. The surrounding tables stopped pretending not to listen. I'm afraid I can't. His eyebrows rose. Can't. I didn't drop it. So whoever drops it should probably pick it up. The room froze. Evan stared at me. Then laughed. Not because he found me funny. Because he thought humiliation was entertainment. You know who I am. I know you're a guest. He stood slowly. You should have learned something from my brother. I did. His smile disappeared. I learned that real respect can't be bought. The sentence landed harder than I expected. For a split second. Something cold crossed Evan's face. Not embarrassment. Resentment. He leaned close enough that only I could hear him. You think Gabriel protected you? I didn't answer. He protects interesting things. His voice dropped lower. Until they become inconvenient. Before I could process the words, he straightened his jacket, smiled at the surrounding guests, and walked toward the exit without paying for lunch. Managers rushed after him. Nobody stopped him. Nobody asked for the bill. As the doors closed behind Evan, our maitre d' looked ready to collapse. We're finished, he whispered. What happened? He swallowed hard. That wasn't a customer. He owns 35% of this restaurant. The dining room suddenly felt much colder. Then my phone vibrated. An unknown number. One text. Don't believe my brother. Gabriel. A second message appeared before I could breathe. But don't trust me either. I stared at Gabriel's second message until the screen dimmed. Don't trust me either. Most powerful men spent fortunes convincing the world they were reliable. He had done the opposite. That unsettled me more than any threat could have. I never replied. By Wednesday afternoon, the restaurant felt different. Not busy. Careful. Managers whispered in offices with closed doors. Accountants arrived carrying boxes of financial records. Even the owners, people I had only seen in framed photographs, walked the dining room pretending everything was normal. It wasn't. Claire leaned against the service station while polishing wine glasses that were already spotless. You should answer him. I don't know him. You don't have to. Her smile carried something sharp beneath it. People like Gabriel Stone don't text waitresses because they're bored. They also don't burn money. She looked at me strangely. Maybe you embarrassed him. I doubt that. Before she could answer, our maitre d' approached. Naomi. Private reservation. Again. The words tightened something inside my chest. I specifically requested another section. So did everyone else. He forced a tired smile. Unfortunately. They requested you. I walked toward the familiar glass dining room expecting Gabriel. Instead, I found only one person. An elderly woman. Elegant. Silver hair gathered into a loose knot. Simple navy dress. No jewelry except a thin gold wedding band. She looked nothing like someone connected to organized power. She smiled before I spoke. You must be Naomi. I'll be taking care of your table tonight. I know. Her voice was warm. My son speaks highly of your honesty. Every instinct told me to leave. You mean? Gabriel. She nodded. I raised him better than his reputation suggests. I almost laughed. Almost. She noticed. That wasn't convincing, was it? No, ma'am. It usually isn't. She ordered chicken soup. Herbal tea. Nothing from the expensive tasting menu. As I served her, she studied the dining room more than the food. You notice people. The observation surprised me. I have to. No. You choose to. She stirred her tea slowly. There's a difference. Before I could respond, a raised voice echoed from the front entrance. Evan. Again. He wasn't alone. Two men in tailored suits followed him carrying folders. He crossed the restaurant without acknowledging his mother. Without acknowledging anyone. Straight toward the owner's office. The elderly woman sighed. My boys always hated eating together. Boys? They're grown men. Not where it matters. There was sadness in her smile. Not disappointment. Grief that had never completely healed. What happened to them? She looked through the glass wall toward the closed office door. They stopped believing forgiveness was practical. The sentence lingered between us. A crash shattered the silence. Someone had dropped an entire tray of crystal glasses. Servers rushed toward the dining room. Guests stood. Arguments erupted near the office. Then. The elderly woman quietly reached into her handbag. She slid a faded photograph across the table. A much younger Gabriel. Maybe 17. His arm around a teenage girl wearing a volunteer badge. Both laughing. Neither looked wealthy. Neither looked dangerous. They weren't always like this. Weren't? My daughter. Her fingers rested gently on the photograph. She believed every person deserved a second chance. What happened to her? The warmth left her eyes. We buried her 11 years ago. She slipped the photograph back into her purse before I could study it longer. My sons buried themselves with her. The office door suddenly burst open. Evan stormed out first. The restaurant owners followed, visibly shaken. One of them shouted loud enough for every guest to hear. If Gabriel signs that agreement, we'll lose everything. Evan smiled. Cold. Victorious. Then he noticed his mother watching. For the first time all evening. His confidence cracked. He walked over. You shouldn't be here. She stood. I wanted lunch. You came to spy. I came to remember what this place felt like before my children turned every room into a battlefield. People pretended not to stare. Nobody succeeded. Evan lowered his voice. You always take his side. No. I take the side that's still worth saving. He left without another word. The front doors slammed behind him. The elderly woman looked exhausted. As I helped her into her coat, she gently squeezed my hand. Naomi. Whatever you think you know about Gabriel, you're still missing the worst part. She walked away before I could ask what she meant. Minutes later, my phone vibrated. Not a text. An email. No sender name. Just one attachment. Stone Family Trust, confidential, and beneath it, a handwritten note. If you want to understand why two brothers are destroying each other, start on page 17. I should have deleted the email. Closed my phone. Gone back to memorizing wine pairings and pretending powerful people lived in a different universe than mine. Instead, at 1:30 in the morning, I sat alone in my tiny apartment with my laptop glowing against the dark. The attachment contained nearly 200 pages. Corporate filings. Property records. Board minutes. Trust agreements. Nothing illegal. Nothing dramatic. Until page 17. Halfway down the document, one paragraph had been highlighted by whoever sent it. Emergency succession clause. In the event that Amelia Stone is declared deceased, controlling authority of the Stone Family Trust shall transfer exclusively to the eldest surviving sibling. My heartbeat slowed. Amelia. The daughter. The sister. The one their mother said they had buried. The legal language continued. All previous charitable directives established by Amelia Stone shall be considered non-binding unless unanimously approved by remaining trustees. I frowned. Charitable directives. That sounded less like inheritance. More like an argument no one wanted honored. The highlighted note beneath the paragraph was handwritten. Ask yourself who benefited from her death. I closed the laptop. No. This wasn't my business. It couldn't become my business. The next afternoon proved I no longer had that choice. A black SUV waited outside Marlowe House before my shift. Not Gabriel's. Evan's. He stood beside it wearing sunglasses despite the cloudy sky. People crossing the sidewalk instinctively walked around him. He smiled when he saw me. You read it. I don't know what you're talking about. You looked. I don't invade other people's lives. You already have. He stepped closer. Not threatening. Confident. My brother likes rescuing impossible causes. I've noticed. He'll eventually disappoint you. I don't know him well enough to be disappointed. His smile faded. Good answer. He reached into his jacket and handed me another envelope. This one wasn't filled with money. Inside sat an invitation. Stone Foundation Annual Board Dinner. Tomorrow evening. Guest name, Naomi Brooks. I don't belong there. Exactly. He buttoned his jacket. I'd like everyone to notice that. He left before I could refuse. Inside the restaurant, Claire was waiting. I saw him. She folded her arms. What did he want? Nothing. You've gotten very good at lying. I ignored the comment. She didn't. You know. Her voice softened. I applied for the promotion you're getting. I'm not getting promoted. She laughed bitterly. Everyone says Gabriel requested you. I never asked for anything. No. Her eyes glistened unexpectedly. You just keep refusing everything. For the first time, I realized Claire wasn't angry because of Gabriel. She was terrified. Working at Marlowe House wasn't just prestige. It was healthcare. Rent. Student loans. One rumor could destroy careers. Mine had already begun affecting everyone else. That realization stayed with me all evening. By closing time, I had made my decision. I found Gabriel's number in my recent messages. One sentence. We need to talk. Public place. No security. His reply arrived almost instantly. Tomorrow. Bryant Park. Noon. No negotiation. No conditions. Just acceptance. The next day, autumn sunlight spilled across Bryant Park as office workers crowded food carts and tourists photographed the library. Normal. Exactly what I had requested. Gabriel sat alone on a weathered green chair with 2 untouched coffees waiting. No bodyguards. No luxury cars nearby. Just a charcoal overcoat and tired eyes that looked older in daylight. You came. You asked. I almost didn't. I know. I stayed standing. I don't want money. I know. I don't want favors. I know. I don't want to become another piece in whatever war your family is fighting. His jaw tightened. I know. For several seconds neither of us spoke. Finally. He slid a thin folder across the table. I hoped you'd never see this. I already did. I was afraid of that. You didn't send it? No. Then who did? Instead of answering, Gabriel looked toward the fountain where children chased pigeons. When my sister died. His voice nearly disappeared beneath the sounds of the park. I stopped asking whether people were telling the truth. I only asked whether they were useful. He looked ashamed saying it. Not defensive. Ashamed. I became very good at winning. And very bad at deserving anyone. Before I could answer, his phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. The color drained from his face. What happened? He stood so abruptly his coffee spilled across the table. My mother. What about her? They can't find her. He looked directly into my eyes. Then said the last words I expected. I think someone wants us to believe she's missing. People imagine powerful men react to crisis by shouting orders. Gabriel didn't. He simply stopped moving. For 3 long seconds, he stared at his phone as though refusing to believe the words on the screen would make them disappear. Then he inhaled once. Slowly. We're leaving. No. The answer surprised both of us. He looked up. What? If your mother is really missing, walking into whatever trap this is without thinking won't help her. The sentence hung between us. 6 months ago, I couldn't have imagined correcting a man whose name made prosecutors lower their voices. Today. He actually listened. What would you do? He asked. Verify the facts before believing the fear. His jaw flexed. Then, to my surprise, he nodded. For the first time since we'd met. He put his phone face down instead of answering another call. We drove separately to the assisted living residence where his mother volunteered twice a week. Police cruisers weren't there. Security wasn't panicking. The receptionist looked confused. Mrs. Stone. She left over an hour ago. Gabriel frowned. With whom? The receptionist checked the visitor log. No one. She walked out. She said her sons would finally have dinner together. Gabriel closed his eyes. Evan. His voice carried no anger. Only exhaustion. We found her apartment empty. Nothing overturned. Nothing stolen. Her reading glasses still rested beside an unfinished crossword puzzle. A kettle sat cold on the stove. Everything looked paused. Not abandoned. Then I noticed something. The dining table. 3 place settings. Not 2. Not 1. 3. Each plate had been folded with linen napkins. As though she had been expecting guests. I walked closer. One envelope rested beneath the center plate. Addressed simply. For my sons. Gabriel reached for it. Then stopped. You open it. What? If it's from her. His voice caught. I don't think I deserve to. That was the first crack. Not in the family. In him. The man everyone feared couldn't bring himself to unfold his own mother's letter. I carefully opened the envelope. Inside was only one handwritten page. No threats. No instructions. Just familiar, elegant handwriting. Gabriel. Evan. If you're reading this, then neither of you listened when I invited you to dinner. That doesn't surprise me anymore. But it still breaks my heart. Before either of you destroys what remains of this family, there is something you were both never told. The letter ended there. Nothing else. The second page had been torn away. Gabriel searched the envelope again. Empty. His breathing changed. Someone removed it. Before I could answer, footsteps echoed from the hallway. An elderly maintenance worker stood frozen outside the apartment. I've been looking for you. Gabriel turned. Did you see Mrs. Stone leave? No. But I saw someone leave before sunrise. Who? The old man hesitated. The younger son. Evan. He was carrying papers. Gabriel looked away. Not surprised. Disappointed. As though this was another wound layered on wounds too old to count. We drove straight to the Stone Foundation headquarters. The annual board dinner had already begun. Executives in tuxedos. Philanthropists. Journalists. Flashing cameras. Everything polished. Everything rehearsed. No one noticed the tension beneath the expensive smiles. Gabriel entered through the main doors. Not hidden. Not protected. The ballroom fell almost silent. People instinctively stepped aside. Across the room. Evan raised a champagne glass. As I was saying. He smiled toward the board members. Leadership requires difficult choices. His eyes met Gabriel's. And sometimes. Family simply refuses to evolve. Dozens of cameras turned toward the brothers. The confrontation everyone had whispered about for years had finally arrived. Gabriel walked forward. No threats. No raised voice. Only one question. Where is mother? Evan's smile never moved. Safe. Where? Somewhere she's finally beyond your influence. Gasps rippled across the ballroom. Then Evan removed a folded document from his jacket. I suppose. This is the appropriate moment. He handed copies to every board member. I caught the title before anyone else reacted. Amelia Stone Foundation Initiative. My pulse stopped. Amelia. The sister who had supposedly died 11 years ago. Gabriel's face drained of color. He whispered one sentence so quietly I almost didn't hear it. That's impossible. Because Amelia never created that foundation. The ballroom forgot how to breathe. Executives lowered their glasses. Reporters stopped taking notes. Even the musicians seemed uncertain whether they should continue playing. Gabriel didn't move. He stared at the words on the document as if they belonged to another language. The Amelia Stone Foundation, Evan repeated calmly. Our sister's final legacy. No. Gabriel's voice was barely audible. She never wrote that proposal. You weren't there. I was. You left before she finished. The sentence struck harder than a slap. I looked from one brother to the other. This wasn't a business disagreement. This was an old wound bleeding in public. One elderly board member adjusted his glasses. Mr. Stone, are you saying these documents are fraudulent? Evan smiled. I'm saying my brother spent 11 years pretending Amelia wanted the world to fear this family. He turned toward the audience. The truth is, she wanted every dollar from our private holdings redirected into community education, vocational training, and family shelters. Whispers spread across the room. Journalists began typing furiously. Gabriel finally spoke. She never gave those papers to you. No. Evan's answer came without hesitation. She gave them to Mother. Silence. My mother hid them. Because she knew you would destroy them. The accusation echoed through the ballroom. For a brief moment, I saw the man behind the legend. Not a mafia boss. Not an empire builder. Just an exhausted older brother carrying guilt too heavy to put down. Gabriel closed his eyes. I destroyed many things. His voice remained calm. But never Amelia. Evan laughed bitterly. No. You just destroyed every dream she ever had. Board members exchanged uneasy glances. Investors whispered. The charity's legal counsel slowly stood. If these directives are authentic, the entire trust structure changes. Every camera turned toward Gabriel. Everyone expected him to fight. To threaten. To deny. Instead, he looked at me. Only me. There was no command in his eyes. Only a question. I understood it immediately. He wanted to know whether telling the truth still mattered. Even now. Even if it cost everything. I took one slow breath. Then walked toward the center of the ballroom. I'm only a waitress. A few reporters looked confused. Some executives rolled their eyes. I don't understand corporate law. I don't know anything about billion-dollar trusts. I looked at the document in Evan's hand. But I know something about unfinished conversations. The room quieted. When someone tears the second page off a mother's letter, they usually remove the part they fear most. No one interrupted. I continued. So before anyone votes, I think everyone deserves to read every page. The legal counsel frowned. The second page doesn't exist. Are you sure? I reached into my handbag. Every eye followed. Earlier that afternoon, before coming to the gala, I had returned to Mrs. Stone's apartment. Something had bothered me. 3 place settings. 1 missing page. 1 strangely heavy picture frame on the dining room shelf. Behind the photograph, folded carefully, I had found another sheet. I held it up. The same stationery. The same handwriting. Mrs. Stone's signature at the bottom. Gabriel looked genuinely stunned. You found it? I wasn't looking for secrets. I was looking for the rest of the story. The attorney carefully accepted the page. His face changed as he read. Then paled. He read aloud. If either of my sons ever presents Amelia's foundation without admitting why she created it, stop the meeting immediately. The room became impossibly still. The attorney swallowed. There was one final paragraph. He hesitated before reading it. Amelia did not ask them to surrender their fortune. She asked them to surrender their hatred. The foundation was never about money. It was about forcing my sons to build something together before either one inherited control. Every journalist stopped typing. Every board member slowly turned toward Evan. Not because he had lied. Because he had only told half the truth. Gabriel wasn't the only one hiding pieces of Amelia's legacy. Evan's confidence vanished for the first time. You don't understand, no, the attorney interrupted quietly. I think we finally do. Then the ballroom doors opened. Mrs. Stone walked inside. Alive. Calm. Flanked not by security, but by a federal mediator and the foundation's outside auditor. She looked directly at her sons. Then said the one sentence that changed everything. I didn't disappear. I was waiting to see which of you would choose the truth before choosing the inheritance. Mrs. Stone's voice was never loud. It didn't need to be. The ballroom that had spent the last hour chasing power suddenly found itself listening to an elderly woman in a navy dress whose hands trembled slightly as she rested them on the podium. I staged nothing, she said quietly. I simply stepped away. The federal mediator beside her nodded once. I requested Mrs. Stone remain at an undisclosed location until tonight's meeting concluded, he confirmed. Legally, she committed no wrongdoing. The room shifted. Not physically. Morally. Everyone who had spent the evening hunting for a villain realized the truth was far less convenient. This family had been destroying itself in public for years. Mrs. Stone looked first at Evan. You believed your brother only cared about control. Then at Gabriel. You believed your brother only cared about money. She smiled sadly. You were both wrong. Neither man answered. Neither could. The attorney cleared his throat. Mrs. Stone, according to the trust, today's vote may still proceed. It may. She folded her hands. But before it does, I'd like both of my sons to answer one question. No one interrupted. If neither of you inherited a single dollar tomorrow, who would you become? Silence answered first. Evan looked toward the board. Toward investors. Toward cameras. Everywhere except his mother. Gabriel looked down at his own hands. Hands that had signed contracts. Built companies. Ruined competitors. Protected people. Threatened others. Hands that suddenly looked unfamiliar even to him. Finally, he spoke. I don't know. No rehearsed speech. No calculated response. Just truth. I've spent so long protecting what our family built, that I forgot why we built anything at all. Across the room, Evan laughed once. Not mockingly. Bitterly. You think admitting guilt fixes everything? Gabriel slowly turned toward him. No. It only stops me from lying. That sentence landed harder than any threat he could have made. The attorney quietly slid a stack of documents across the table. If the board approves Amelia's original vision, Stone Global will surrender majority ownership of several subsidiaries into an independent charitable trust. Executives immediately protested. Share prices will collapse. We'll lose institutional investors. This is financial suicide. For years I had watched wealthy people panic over percentages. That night, they looked terrified of generosity. Every eye shifted to Gabriel. He held the deciding proxy. One signature. That was all. He could save his empire. Or honor his sister. Mrs. Stone didn't speak. Neither did I. This choice had to belong to him. Gabriel picked up the pen. The same kind of silver fountain pen Evan had once dropped in front of me expecting someone else to retrieve it. Gabriel studied it for a long moment. Then, he quietly placed it back on the table. No. Confusion spread across the board. The chairman frowned. You refuse to sign. Gabriel looked directly at him. I refuse to decide alone. He turned toward Evan. Our sister wanted us to build something together. I won't steal that from her. For the first time all evening. He pushed the documents across the table. Toward his brother. You sign first. The ballroom froze. Nobody had expected surrender. Least of all Evan. His younger brother stared at the papers without touching them. I spent 11 years trying to beat you. I know. I wanted you to lose everything. I know. You still trust me with this? Gabriel shook his head gently. No. I trust Amelia. The words shattered whatever remained between them. Evan lowered his head. For the first time since I had met him, the arrogance disappeared. Only grief remained. With visibly shaking fingers, he signed. Then slid the documents back. Gabriel signed beneath him. No applause followed. Only silence. The kind that comes when history quietly changes direction. Reporters forgot to ask questions. Board members lowered their eyes. Even the executives who opposed the decision seemed to understand they had witnessed something money could not purchase. As people slowly began leaving the ballroom, Gabriel walked toward me. No security followed. No assistants interrupted. He looked exhausted. Lighter somehow. I spent years believing strength meant never giving anything away. He managed a tired smile. You proved me wrong the night you returned my money. Before I could answer, Claire hurried through the crowd, pale and breathless, clutching her phone. Naomi. Her voice shook. You need to come back to the restaurant. What happened? She looked at both of us. The owner just called. He said someone left an envelope on your table after closing. My heartbeat quickened. Who? Claire swallowed. He said. The note was signed by Amelia Stone. By the time we reached Marlowe House, midnight had already erased the dinner crowd. The chandeliers were dimmed. The piano stood silent. Only the night manager waited near the entrance. He looked relieved the moment he saw me. I didn't touch it. What? The envelope. It's exactly where she left it. He pointed toward table 7. The same table. The same chair where Gabriel had quietly pushed a fortune toward me days earlier. Everything had begun there. Everything had somehow returned. The envelope rested beneath a porcelain coffee cup. Cream-colored. Unsealed. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside wasn't a contract. Not legal documents. Not money. Just a folded recipe card. On the front, written in elegant handwriting, were 4 simple words. Pear tart, family recipe. Gabriel stopped breathing beside me. My sister. He whispered almost to himself. She wrote every recipe card by hand. I turned it over. On the back was Amelia's final message. Not every inheritance fits inside a vault. Some must be served. Some must be shared. If you're reading this together, then one of you finally listened. My throat tightened. There was one final line. Naomi. Thank you for refusing what my brothers never learned to refuse. Pride without purpose. For a long moment, no one spoke. Even the restaurant itself seemed unwilling to interrupt. Gabriel carefully traced the edge of the recipe card with one finger. I spent 11 years trying to protect her memory. His voice cracked. She never asked me to protect it. She asked you to live it. He looked at me. Not like a man searching for approval. Like someone seeing the truth without wanting to escape it. The following months changed more than newspapers could explain. The financial press called Gabriel's decision reckless. Investors predicted collapse. Competitors celebrated too early. Yet something unexpected happened. Employees stayed. Communities partnered with the new foundation. Vocational schools expanded. Scholarships carried Amelia Stone's name instead of another corporate logo. For the first time, people associated the Stone family with something other than fear. Evan surprised everyone most. He accepted a smaller role within the company and spent nearly every week visiting the education centers Amelia had dreamed about. He and Gabriel never became identical. Some scars don't disappear. But they finally stopped treating every disagreement like a war. As for me, I kept my job. By choice. The restaurant owner offered me management. I declined. Then offered me a partnership overseeing the foundation's culinary apprenticeship program. That I accepted. One rainy evening nearly a year later, I found myself serving table 7 again. Gabriel had reserved it. Just one guest. No security. No executives. No headlines. Only him. He stood when I approached. Something he had never done before. "You still work too much," he said. "So do you." "I've been trying to improve." I noticed. He smiled. Not the careful smile powerful men practice for cameras. A real one. Quiet. Earned. He reached into his jacket. For one impossible second, I thought he might place another envelope on the table. Instead, he set down a single silver dollar. Old. Worn smooth by decades of passing through strangers' hands. No fortune this time. No. He gently pushed the coin toward me. Just enough to buy one slice of pear tart. I laughed. The sound surprised both of us. "You finally learned the difference." "Between what?" "Paying. And valuing." He nodded slowly. "I had to meet the only waitress brave enough to teach me." I picked up the silver dollar. Then quietly slid it back across the table. "Dessert is on the house." He looked at the coin. Then at me. "No. I insist." "So do I." For a heartbeat we simply smiled at one another. Neither of us trying to win. Neither of us trying to owe. Outside, rain painted silver lines across the windows exactly as it had the night we first met. Inside, the restaurant was full. People laughed. Glasses clinked. Life continued. No one noticed the small exchange taking place at table 7. And somehow, that made it even more meaningful. Because the greatest victory wasn't that a mafia boss had changed. It was that he no longer needed the room to fall silent before someone would hear him. The only silence that mattered had happened long ago. The moment a waitress looked at a powerful man, returned his money, and reminded him that dignity was the one thing no fortune could ever afford.